Again, thank you so much for being here. My name's Melody O'Neill. I'm the Associate Admission Director at Landmark, and this is my 26th year working at Landmark School. I've had a couple different roles during my years at Landmark. I started out as a teacher at our high school campus in our Expressive language program. I'll talk about that this evening. And taught classes, taught the one-to-one tutorials that we offer, which I'll also talk about in a little bit. And then I worked for a while as an academic advisor, overseeing students' programming at the high school. And I've been in the admission office now for quite some time, since 2006. So it's been a great place to be all of these years. It's an amazing school, amazing community, amazing group of teachers and faculty and students especially. And it's also a personal connection for me as well as professional. I have a son who attends our middle school. My daughter, who's in public high school now, did a number of summer programs at Landmark. We have a wonderful summer program. So I've kind of, been involved with Landmark, both, again, professionally and personally for a number of years, and really excited to talk with you more about the school this evening. So I will get the slideshow up and running. Just give me a moment to do that. And
Mel, while you're doing that, I'll just say hello too. I'm Libby Parker. I'm the Director of Admission. Like Mel, I have a son who graduated from Landmark in 2007. It was a great success for him. I've been in admissions all of my career and been at Landmark recently for 7 years. So we welcome you. If you'd like to raise questions along the way in the chat, we'll try to get that answered. But Mel's got a great presentation plan, so listen away.
Okay, I'll have this up.
Again, just a final reminder that we are going to record this. So if you need to step away for a moment, know that this will be coming to your email within the next day or so. Hopefully you'll see Melody's presentation full screen, but if that's not automatically happening, if you scroll to the center of her PowerPoint slide, you'll see a thumbtack icon, which will allow you to pin it to screen. And again, for those of you who are just joining, in the top right-hand corner, you can see the chat bar, which is a box with the 3 horizontal lines. And feel free to share where you're joining us from, and then to utilize that functionality at any point during today's presentation. All right, Melody, take it away.
Right, Katie, and you can see everything fine? Looks good?
It looks great, yeah.
Okay, great. So welcome again. What we're going to start off with this evening is talking about who our amazing, wonderful students are at Landmark. And so the first 3 points I wanted to make here is that our kids are really bright kids. They're curious and eager to learn. They're well-adjusted. They're really highly motivated, resilient, and capable. So, despite the fact that learning may have been challenging for the students in previous school settings, they are still really wanting to do well. They still have, that drive to want to see results for their hard work. And so they really are capable, resilient kids, and they just need to be taught in a different way in the right environment. So they come to us with these wonderful characteristics and traits in place, and just need a place to learn and thrive. In terms of the umbrella term that we use at Landmark to describe who our students are as learners, our students have been diagnosed with what we call a language-based learning disability. And again, we look at that as kind of an umbrella term that can encompass a number of possible specific diagnoses or labels that you've probably heard through either private neuropsych testing or public school psychoeducational evaluations. And the first label or term diagnosis that's listed here is dyslexia. That's about 70% or so of our high school population of students that are diagnosed with what we would refer to as this, classic phonologically based reading disability, the dyslexia, the kids that struggle with the word attack and decoding, which affects encoding and fluency. And so, 70 to 80% of our kids, I would say, have this classic dyslexia diagnosis. Sometimes we have students that come to Landmark who may not be classically dyslexic, but they may have other, again, struggles with language and processing and output that falls under this language-based umbrella. So a disorder of written language, where students have all these great ideas in their head, but the ability to organize that and get that down on paper for the writing process could be a real struggle. Some of our students at Landmark at the high school will really struggle with aspects of language output, so that processing and retrieval and production of oral language may be a real difficulty for them. They may have a diagnosed expressive language disorder. I'm going to skip the executive function for just a sec and jump down to the working memory and our processing speed. You know, I mentioned at that very first slide how our kids are really bright. The students have so much cognitive potential, but where we oftentimes see a discrepancy or a struggle with that cognitive ability might be around the working memory piece, which is that ability to hold on to a lot of information at once that they have to do something with. And then the processing speed is that, you know, how quickly they can output and scan information. The executive function piece is kind of a buzzword these days. It's very common to hear about this executive function. It's a very common diagnosis. And that really centers around the student's ability to plan and organize and initiate tasks independently, having good study skill strategies in place, test-taking strategies, strategies for breaking down and implementing a writing process, and so forth. So these are the specific, diagnoses or labels that we often see that our students have at Landmark. That fall under this umbrella. And this is really about it. It's a very specific group of students that we support at Landmark. I tell parents all the time, families, that it's, you know, a pretty narrow piece of the pie. We're not a therapeutic school, so if students have more primary issues or you know, concerns around social, emotional, behavioral development and needs in that arena, we would not be the best place to support that. We certainly have students that come to Landmark that might have some secondary, you know, anxiety or depression, lowered self-esteem and frustration due to the academic struggles, but it really is a direct result of that and not a primary issue. And for students who may have, you know, a diagnosis of what we refer to as like a nonverbal learning disability or ASD, which is like more in the spectrum, we may not be the right fit to support those students just because our teachers are very specifically trained and skilled to support this language-based profile only. So for a student that has a broader range of needs, we may not be the right fit because, you know, those students learn differently and need different techniques and programming to be put into place. So that's really our profile. Again, I want to reiterate the cognitive piece, which is, you know, really important to us to make sure that a student's going to be able to access curriculum and make effective progress. So we do ask for testing to be submitted within 3 years of date of application. We work on a rolling basis in terms of that application. I just want to throw that out. We don't have an application deadline for both our summer program and our school academic school year high school program. We work on this rolling basis, but we do need a number of specific pieces of documentation and materials to be submitted as part of that application. The neuropsych or private or public school psychoeducational evaluations are important. We need to see areas of academic testing, and we need to see the cognitive testing, which again is the WISC. Hopefully most of you have heard of that. That stands for Wessler Intelligence Scale for Children. If a student is 16 or older, they may have had what we call the WACE, which is just the adult version of this test. So we're looking at, or what this test is looking at, is areas of verbal comprehension, that kind of that receptive understanding of language coming in. The fluid reasoning and visual spatial integration is really when you remove language, that ability to see the big picture and integrate and problem solve and reason. And we, again, are really relying on those areas to be areas of strength for the Landmark student. those are the strengths that we teach to, and we rely on that, again, for students to be able to access curriculum and make progress. And again, as I mentioned earlier, where we oftentimes see discrepancy and difficulty is with that working memory and or processing speed not being equal to where some of these other strengths are. And so again, we'll collect a bunch of information when you apply. There are school reports, copies of IEPs or 504 plans if there are any, teacher references, and this testing. And we really like to get, wait to review an application until we have all of the information in, and we can get a really big picture understanding and take a thoughtful process, to review everything and make sure that we're going to be a good fit to support that student. If there are any other questions as we finish up this evening in terms of that application process, we can certainly talk with you more. You can call our office or email us anytime to learn more about the application itself. Okay, so let's get into what's unique about Landmark High School in terms of the programs and what we do on a day-to-day basis at our high school. So one of the most important parts of what we do at Landmark, and kind of the hallmark of who we are and what we've been doing since 1971 when our school started, so we're celebrating 50 years at this point, is this one-to-one tutorial. Every student that comes to Landmark that has any gaps in basic reading, literacy skills, or language skills that they need remediated will get this one-to-one tutorial. It's its own class for 50 minutes every day. It's not before or after school. It's not, like an academic support period where students getting help with homework. It has its own individualized curriculum designed from a diagnostic of goals, where we look at all of these areas of word attack, decoding skills, encoding skills, reading fluency skills, reading comprehension strategies, writing skills, study skills, oral language skills, and we will figure out what specifically each student needs to target. So no two tutorials look the same. They're very specific and totally individualized. Of the 300 students that we typically have at the high school campus, about 80 or 90 of our students enter Landmark getting a very specific type of tutorial that we refer to as an early literacy tutorial. And this tutorial is designed for students who come to us with real significant gaps still in place with the basic phonological awareness for word attack. They will utilize a lot of the Linda Mood Bell LIPS program, which is a phonetic-based approach towards teaching reading. If folks have heard of Wilson or what we call OG or Gillingham, these are all phonetic-based approaches towards teaching reading. So, that being said, we don't believe in having just one tool in the toolbox. We want to really take a diagnostic and prescriptive approach and really figure out what works best for each student when they're in their tutorial. But we are utilizing a lot of the LIPS program for the students who are still working on some of these early literacy skills, because we find it's the most multisensory of all of the programs. Our students respond very well to that. There's a lot of hands-on visual kinesthetic things happening. And like I said, they respond very well to that. If a student doesn't need a specific early literacy tutorial and they're working on some higher level fluency and comprehension skills, then they would go into just what we refer to as more of a traditional tutorial. But please know, again, this is a really important part of our program, and it's very unique to Landmark. It happens every day for 50 minutes, 5 days a week, just like they would be getting a small group math class, history class, English language arts class. They are getting this one-to-one tutorial every day. Another thing that's really unique about Landmark and what we do programmatically is that we're looking to have very small class sizes and to place students in these classes by their ability level. So we'll have families all the time that will call the admission office and ask, for example, is our 10th grade sophomore class full or our junior class full? And that's actually not how we accept and admit students to our program. We fill until we're full as a school, or until all of our tutorial teaching periods are full, because we're not worried about necessarily keeping all 10th graders together or all 11th graders together. We're more worried about making sure that the 6 to 8 students, for example, in a specific geometry class are moving at the same pace, have the same skill sets in place. Same thing for English and science. And, in a reading class, it's really important. Again, we're looking at, where are levels of literacy skills and language skills and that working memory and processing speed, so that, the students can feel like they're really moving at the same pace as their peers in their classes. It also really allows for the teacher to know how quickly to pace the class and how much homework they can assign each night and so forth. So that's really important. I just want to throw out that, we're not taking 18, 19-year-old seniors and putting them with 14-year-old freshmen, but grade up, grade down, we're placing based on ability level. Landmark School does parallel the Mass Curriculum Frameworks. We're an approved program. About half of our students come to Landmark funded by local districts. And we are following, again, the curriculum that a student would have at any public high school in terms of those content area classes. So the geometry and algebra, the biology and chemistry, the U.S. and world history. It's just obviously the delivery of instruction is much different at Landmark, with it being multisensory and visually based and hands-on and really teaching content through study skills. I'll talk more about that. But we do follow the Mass Curriculum Frameworks. And our classes are taught by teachers who have a master's in special education, in mild to moderate special education. And for the few that haven't yet received their master's, they're currently working towards that, and with, through the Department of Education and classes that they take. We have a partnership, what used to be with Simmons, and now it's BU Wheelock, and our teachers are working towards that if they don't already have their master's. So let's talk a little bit more about the approach and what makes for a really good language-based program. When we talk about language-based, we're talking about a skills-based program where there is direct and explicit instruction. So what does that mean? It means that it's less of, for example, a science teacher saying, go read these 10 pages of your science text and learn this information on your own, and we'll review it in class, and more of the teacher teaching the content through skills. So how do we effectively preview relevant vocabulary that we're going to be seeing in this chapter? How do we take good 2-column notes with main ideas and details? How do you review this information for an upcoming quiz or test? Or if we need to organize information for a paper you need to write, what's the process in doing that? So the teacher's reading a lot of the information instructionally in the classroom to the students. They're having lots of discussions, doing hands-on activities, and learning study skills during the process. And it's consistent, I want to say. I'm sorry, I just flipped back, but I want folks to understand that in order for students to internalize these skills and for these skills to become automatic, which is our goal, it needs to be consistent across curriculum, with all of the teachers really implementing the same strategies, using the same templates and graphic organizers, and that's what allows for the student to become more independent with the skills. We do have 3 distinct programs at our high school. When a family applies to Landmark High School, you're just applying to Landmark High School as a whole. And then what we do through the process, through reviewing independent testing and also doing some of our own informal assessments, what we do is we determine which program is going to be the best fit to support a student where they are, and close gaps and give them the skill remediation that they need and move them along. So I want to emphasize that we are a high school, college, or we're a college preparatory high school as a whole. What program a student goes into has nothing to do with how smart they are. It really has to do with the skill sets that they have or that they don't have in place when they come to us. I also want to mention that within these 3 distinct programs, there can be a lot of fluidity. We have students who might be in one specific program, but are taking classes in a different program as well as part of their schedule. So we always want to move students along and challenge them in the areas where they excel, but we also want to meet them where they need the remediation. So to start off talking about our Founders Program, this is where the largest majority of students that come to Landmark enter within our traditional Founders Program. Within the Founders Program, students are taking 6 content classes during the day. They do have a lunch period and they have an elective class, something fun, and I will talk about all the fun stuff soon and go over all of the amazing elective classes and extracurriculars, everything we have to offer outside of academics. But I want to get through this academic stuff first. So if you look at the schedule here, it shows an example of classes, I should say. They're 50-minute classes. We start at 7:50 in the morning. We finish at 3:15 in the afternoon, and these students are taking a math, science, and social studies class. They take an English language arts where the focus is grammar and written composition. They have a one-to-one tutorial in their schedule, and this could be either the traditional tutorial that I mentioned, or it can be an early lit tutorial utilizing that LIPS program that I had mentioned. It depends what the student needs. So we determine that. And then as their 6th academic in the day, we also will determine, does the student require an additional small group reading fluency class? If they don't need that in addition to their tutorial, would a study skills class be appropriate, or possibly a literature class? So we have some options to choose from depending what the student needs. The second program that we have at the high school is our Expressive Language program. And we probably have, again, a good 80 to 90 students each year that are placed in this program because we've seen that they have trouble with oral output of language, that expressive language piece. So they may have a diagnosis from previous testing that talks about an expressive language disorder, or we may see from some of the informal testing that we do that it's a real difficulty for a student to get out their thoughts and organize their language. So for the students in this program, you'll see that the classes look very similar to the Founders: math, science, social studies, English language arts. That's all pretty consistent. The one-to-one tutorial still in the schedule. And like I said, just like for the students in the Founders, it can be a Founders traditional tutorial or an early literacy tutorial, depending what they need. The main difference in the schedule for these students that are in the Expressive Language program is that their 6th academic class is an oral expression class. And again, this class is in their schedule because we've seen through testing the need for the student to have support around word retrieval strategies, figurative language, multiple meanings, understanding of idioms, that ability for them to express in a clear, concise way how their weekend was from beginning to end. Those are the types of skills that are worked on in the oral expression class. So that's really the only difference in their day. And also just to mention that their English language arts class might even be more highly structured in terms of organization for the written output as well. Students that are in the Expressive Language program versus our traditional Founders program, they don't even necessarily know that they're in one program or the other. It's really a difference of that one class. And then the third program that we have at the high school is our prep program. And this program is a little bit different than the other two in that these are the only students at Landmark, and we usually have around 40 to 50 students a year in our prep program. These are the only students who are not receiving the daily one-to-one tutorial for literacy remediation, because these students do not require literacy remediation. This might be students who are coming to Landmark brand new that do not have maybe a dyslexia diagnosis, but they struggle with a disorder of written expression and the executive function piece. So that their working memory might be an issue. And so, or we have students sometimes that have had previous remediation. Maybe they do have a dyslexia diagnosis, but they've had the remediation so that they're now reading at grade level. We're seeing average range scores with the decoding and the reading fluency and the encoding, which tells us they really don't need that one-to-one literacy tutorial anymore. And so these students are in classes, math, science, social studies, grammar and composition is their language arts class for written expression. And then they have a specific literature class and a study skills class in their day. The class sizes in the prep program can be slightly bigger, 10 or 11 students sometimes, instead of the 6 to 8 in the Founders or the Expressive Language program. Pace, volume, and complexity increases in the prep program because we know that these students are, again, reading at grade level, and they can handle a bit more in terms of the reading demands and also with the written output. Students really need to have a good sense of paragraph structure. They're typically able to put together, a 2 to 3 paragraph essay and really understand the paragraph structure when they go into the prep program. So those are the 3 programs within the high school. And again, there's flexibility. So we may have a student in our prep program, for example, who struggles with expressive language and who maybe needs an oral expression class, but they don't have the need for the literacy remediation. So maybe instead of taking a literature class, they would have an oral expression class in their schedule. Or we might have a student in the Founders program or the Expressive Language program that loves and excels in the area of history, social studies. So they may have a prep social studies class or maybe a prep level study skills class. We also have students at Landmark that may start out in our Expressive Language or our Founders program, and maybe after a couple of years of the remediation, they move into the prep program. So again, we're always pushing students along as they make progress and remediate skills. We want to offer the right level of challenge, but again, we want to meet them where they still need the support and remediation. So I've mentioned the study skills piece already, but just to reiterate, it's really embedded in everything that we do, and it's consistent across curriculum. So again, teaching those explicit strategies and skills around how to take good 2-column notes, what is the 5-step writing process and how to structure that in breaking down their ideas for, brainstorm and an outline and a rough draft, and how to do the editing and final draft process, how to effectively preview vocabulary and all of the good test taking strategies. Again, we're teaching these skills across curriculum. And it's really important that the students, again, our goal is to have them internalize these skills so we can start to remove some of the structure for them and they can implement these strategies independently. Another thing that's really wonderful and unique about Landmark and our high school is the role of the academic advisor. This person is the person who oversees the student's schedule. They make sure everything's going okay with their classes. They work really closely with the student's one-to-one tutorial teacher to set up the diagnostic of goals. They'll go in regularly to observe and monitor progress and adjust goals as needed. For any student in their caseload that might be funded from a local district, they work on writing the IEP along with our public school liaison for that student. And it's also, this person is the main contact for parents and guardians, for them to reach out and get updates on how things are going. It's the main contact for the student as well. So I always tell the students that, if they were, let's say, a commuting day student and they get to school one day and they realize that they left, their whole homework folder at home by accident, they can go find their advisor and talk to their advisor about that. Or if, they're here for the first month of school and they feel like they're in a class that's not the right level for them, they can go talk to their advisor about that. They get to know their advisor very well. That person stays with the student during all of their years at Landmark. So it's not a new person every year like a teacher or a tutor would be. This advisor, like I said, stays with them during all of their years. So they develop a really nice close relationship with them, which is really wonderful. Another thing that we offer at Landmark, a great aspect of our programming is the Guidance and Transition Office. And this is where, students have the opportunity, even starting as early as freshman year of high school, to start thinking about their interests and their passions and what they might like to pursue. Starting junior year, students are paired up with a specific guidance counselor where they have weekly meetings throughout the year and into senior year. So it's very personalized support throughout the entire, process of exploring options, trying to figure out what schools they might want to apply to, what schools might have the right level of support, what might be the right size, location, all of those things. Again, it's very hands-on with Landmark. We help students with requesting applications, helping them to get letters of recommendation, working on their college essays. It's a very, very hands-on process. All of our students, and pretty much all of them, apply to college. 100% get accepted. Typically between 94 and 96% attend. We might have some students that decide to do a gap year or get involved with military or go to into a specific trade, for example. But most of our students are going off to different colleges and universities. The homework piece at Landmark is important at the high school. I tell students, and it's important for them to understand that it does count as a third of their grade at the high school, and they will have homework every night. But what I also tell students is that not to worry, it really is manageable. The goal of homework at Landmark is for students to be able to practice and review the skills and content that they've learned in class. So it's always, again, that direct practice. Typically, whatever student's been working on that day at school, they get the opportunity to reinforce and practice that at night. It really allows, again, for them to have even more opportunity to internalize skills, to understand the content. Teachers go over it the next day. It then allows the teacher to know that the students really got the information and the skills that they were working on and that they can move on to the next thing. Typically, for students entering 9th, 10th grade, it's about an hour and a half a night of homework. It's usually around 20 minutes per subject. And again, there are 6 academic subjects in the day. As students become upperclassmen and enter junior, senior year, the homework demands will increase a bit more. We want students to be really prepared when they do go off to college to balance a bit more of a workload. But again, we really set it up for students to feel like they can be independent and successful with their homework. We don't want it to be a source of frustration. And we do offer support after school if a student were to miss an assignment or struggle with something. They would go after school to homework makeup to get caught up. And typically our academic advisors are overseeing that and working with the students. We really don't want students to get multiple assignments behind. So we really work to support them to stay on top of their work. So that takes us through kind of the academic part of the day at Landmark. Again, it's a 7:50 start time. 3:15 is when we finish, 50-minute classes, same set schedule every day. We don't rotate. We're not on a 6-day cycle. We're not on an A week, B week. If a student were to start their day with a math class, that's what they're going to have every day, Monday through Friday. First period is math. So there's real consistency there, and it's easy for the students to then remember where they're going each day. So what I'd like to do now is shift into talking about after school, some of the fun stuff. I really want to take some time to talk about and promote our amazing residential curriculum and life at Landmark for students that are boarding. This year, obviously, with the pandemic, we've had to put the boarding program on pause, but we will be resuming residential life for the 21-22 school year. Usually, we'll have probably about 60% of our students commuting as day students and about 40% of our students living on campus as residents. And even if, before I get into talking about how great residential life is at Landmark, I do want to just say for families who are only considering a day option, please know that students can be on campus really as much as they want to be. So I would say over 95% of our day students stay for afternoon activities, whether that's sports, our amazing visual or performing arts department, the STEAM lab stuff. There's so many opportunities for afternoon activities. It's the best way to get to know more students and to feel really connected and be a part of the community. So almost all of our day students take advantage of that. And we really recommend that. It's not going to be as smooth a transition if a student's leaving at 3:15 every day, right when school gets out. And a lot of our day students will stay through supper and head home, after rush hour traffic. So that's, welcome and welcomed, and we encourage that. For the students that do live on campus and any family that's possibly considering that option, and I really want to put in a plug for anybody that has, over a 45-minute or an hour-long commute every day. The residential program is an amazing opportunity and option. What we do for the kids that live at Landmark is that we're offering a huge amount of support around developing the executive function piece. We're really looking to promote effective time management and organizational skills, building the self-advocacy and healthy decision-making piece, really building those life skills and the ability to navigate and problem solve independently. And it really gives these students a leg up when they head off to college, to be able to manage themselves, like I said, independently. And successfully. So we work on something called a level system. And the goal of the level system, again, are to build these skills and for students to become more independent with these skills. Every new student that comes to Landmark, whether they're coming in as a freshman or if they were coming in as a junior new, they would start off at level 1. And it goes from level 1 up to level 6 being the highest level. And the goal is, again, every few weeks as the students are meeting day-to-day expectations, they're on time getting out of the dorm for breakfast in the morning, they're on time with their lights out at night, they're productive during structured study hall and getting homework done, and they're just a positive member of the residential community. Every few weeks, if students are doing those things, they get to move up to the next level and they gain privileges. So I'll give the example of, by the Thanksgiving break, for a new student who's really taking care of business and doing all of these day-to-day things, they could be up to level 5, and at that point they can have a fridge and TV in their room, and they can have food delivered to their room, and they can have a later bedtime, and they can shut their door during study hall and be on their bed instead of at their desk with the door open at the lower levels, and independent checkout in the morning and so forth. So, a student has to prove to us that they can handle the responsibility and the independence, and then they get these extra privileges. And that structure, that level structure is implemented, starting Sunday night, and then we go through Thursday night study hall. Friday is the start of weekend and weekend activities. After a student does their afternoon activity and supper, they have an hour of free time to hang out with friends, and then they get ready for structured study hall, which happens 8 to 9:30 in their rooms. And the teachers are doing coverage in the dorms. Every dorm has a house parent and a couple other live-in staff who are, again, these are teachers. So it's not a separate group of residential folks. It's the teachers that teach here during the day and know your students and know how they learn and what kind of support they need through structured study hall and within the dorm. So it really is a wonderful program and opportunity. And, for the students who are close enough, if they want to go home during the weekends, they can. If you need to take them out Wednesday night for dinner, you can. But it allows for them to not have to do a long commute on a daily basis. And sometimes, the students are getting home late at night to literally just do homework, go to bed, and get up really early the next morning. So it can alleviate some of that long commute time and fatigue that can go along with that. So let's get into pursuing the passions at Landmark, electives and after school activities. We have an amazing visual arts department with all kinds of 2D, 3D media art, drawing, painting, printmaking, ceramics, digital art, photography. These are all classes that are electives during the school day for students to choose from, but they are also available as afternoon activities after school if a student is not participating in a sport. There's all kinds of options with the performing arts department, drama and dance and theater tech and chorus. And we have students taking music lessons after school. We have productions that happen through the drama department, fall and winter school plays and the spring musical. We have chorus concerts happening. With the athletic program, we have 3 seasons of JV and varsity sports. In the fall, we offer soccer, cross country, golf, and girls volleyball. In the winter, we have wrestling, basketball, swim team, and indoor track. We also, during the winter months, on Saturdays, we'll go to local mountains for skiing and snowboarding. That's not a team. It's just a fun Saturday activity that students can do. And then in the spring, we offer lacrosse, tennis, outdoor track, sailing, baseball, and softball. Again, we're competing with other private schools in the area as part of a league. And again, we have competitive varsity teams and JV teams for, if a student's never picked up a lacrosse stick and they want to learn how to play, we welcome that. So the athletic program is really amazing. We also have a working auto shop on campus with auto mechanics as an elective during the day or after school. Students can be working in the auto mechanics shop. Same thing with woodworking and boat building. We have an amazing Steamworks lab with technology related classes and 3D printing and film production and animation, and there are a lot of options. We also have other clubs after school, and we have kids that are doing, ultimate frisbee or skateboarding. We have mountain biking trails. We've had different clubs in the past, like cooking club or chess club, D&D. So again, so many options. It really allows for Landmark to truly feel like a private preparatory high school for these kids. They're not giving up anything, even though they're needing specific type of education around the language-based instruction and the remediation. They're still getting to pursue all the passions that they have and really feeling like they're getting a full and balanced high school experience at Landmark. We also have a very robust community service program. Students are involved with all kinds of community service, trips and outings and activities and volunteer work. And that's a big part of our community as well at Landmark. And so that kind of sums up our school year. I'm sure there are things I didn't mention, but there's so much to talk about. And I do want to take just a few minutes to talk about our wonderful summer program that we have. The summer program happens for the month of July. It's 4 weeks. It is for students who are entering 8th through 12th, so rising 8th graders and up. So that's a bit different from the school year, where during the school year it's students entering and rising 9th graders and up. I do want to mention that our summer program for this summer, due to COVID, is going to just be a day program. We're not going to have a boarding option this summer, but we are in a beautiful location right on the ocean on the North Shore, 30 minutes north of Boston. So certainly families come to the area, even if they are from further away, and they might be able to rent a place for the month. So it's something to look into if you're further away. We offer 4 classes that take place in the earlier part of the day, morning until lunchtime, starting at 8:30 this summer. And each class is an hour long. So the students would have the 1-to-1 tutorial. They'll have language arts class to work on written composition. They will have a math class, And then their fourth class would be either a study skills class or an extra small group reading class. Again, we would determine that based on students' profile and learning needs. And so for the summer, a student can decide to come for just those half day of academics if they'd like, or they can choose to do what we call the extended day program, where they would pick an afternoon activity that runs from 2:30 to 4:30. Because after the academics, there's lunch, and then there's a structured study hall to get some homework done in the afternoon. So the afternoon activity runs from 2:30 to 4:30, and there are amazing options to choose from for that. There's a sea kayaking and paddleboarding option, marine science. There's a health and fitness option, a visual arts, and a digital photography option. So a student would pick one of those 5 options for the 4 weeks of the summer program if they did the extended day with us. And it's still, the Landmark teachers that teach during the school year, a smaller number because our summer program is smaller, usually around 50 students for the summer versus 300 for the school year. But it's the same skilled and qualified faculty and teachers that are there teaching your students over the summer that work during the school year. And for a lot of students who are maybe going to be new in the fall, especially if they're going to be living away for the first time, it really is a nice transition for them to start with us over the summer program, and they get some familiarity that way prior to the start of the school year. And I think that's everything. I'm going to have, how are we doing for time, Katie? Did I take too long? Finish too soon?
That was perfect. Yeah,
okay.
We're good. So as Melody turns off her presentation, we're going to shift gears and we'll begin our panel. So I'll start by introducing some of our administrators. Thank you, administrators, for giving up your evening to teach these families a little bit more, share about our community. And then we also have some students joining. So again, please, please, please don't hesitate to use that chat bar to populate questions for either the students or for our administrator panelists. I'm going to start by introducing Bill Barrett, the head of the high school.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I know it's probably been a long day, but thanks for spending the time with us to learn a little bit about the high school program. As Katie mentioned, my name is Bill Barrett. I'm the head of the high school. This is my 6th year in this position. Prior to that, I was the director of faculty recruiting and hiring. And like every administrator here, I'm an administrator, but I'm also a teacher. I teach a class. So this is my 25th year at Landmark School. My wife, Christine, is a department head in our early literacy program. It's her 25th year as well. We have 3 children that all went to our Tot Spot daycare on the high school campus, and one of them went to the elementary middle school for 2 years. So we are truly a Landmark family. And I think what I always tell parents and prospective students is when I answer questions, it's with my professional hat, but also with my personal hat in a sense. It's a school. We've been a part of this mission for a long time, and I'm happy to be here tonight to share with you what I know. And again, thank you for being here, and I'll pass it back to Katie.
Thanks, Bill. We also have Ariel Martin Cohen on the line. Ariel, can you say hello?
I can. Hi, good evening. I'm Ariel. I'm the Assistant Academic Dean, and I'm also the Director of the Summer Program. So if you have any questions about summer, I'd love to answer them. And I can certainly speak to any academic element of the program.
Thanks, Ariel. And we also have Rob Genetelli, Dean of Students.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Similar to Bill, I'm in my 25th year as the Dean of Students at the high school. I'm very excited to be here tonight and be able to share with you and answer any of your questions you might have as you contemplate Landmark School for your child. Thank you very much for being with us.
Great. And now the real stars of the show. We have 4 students who have generously given up their evening to share their experiences. Let's see. Dominic, would you like to introduce yourself first? You can say how long you've been at Landmark, your grade, your hometown, and some of the things that you're involved with on campus. That would be great.
Sure, sounds great. Hi, hello, I'm Dominic Paolini. This is my 5th year here. I started here as the 8th grade program. I'm a senior so far, and the things I partake in this campus, I do cross country and track, and I partake in the art department.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah,
Maggie,
no
can you say hello?
Sure. Hi, I'm Maggie McTigue. I'm a senior this year. This is my third year. I joined Landmark during my sophomore year. I'm from Larchmont, New York. This year, I started becoming a part of the student advocate program here at Landmark. I'm also a part of the varsity swim team, the tennis team, and I don't know, I've just been a really big part of also dorm life and housing and everything while I've been here.
Great. Maggie, could you explain what the student advocates are?
Yeah, so it's this year it's a group of 12 seniors, and basically we take a class period and we go around to different colleges and schools and we advocate for students, and we talk to basically teachers or students who are planning to become teachers and tell them about what dyslexia, ADHD, learning disabilities are, and kind of give them an insight to how we learn, and also give them like our stories, what we think would be best for students. I know this year I'm doing my part of my, like, we do a presentation, each student does a different section of the presentation. This year I'm doing the importance of a good support system for students with language-based learning disabilities. So that's my thing, and then each student has their own thing. So yeah.
Great explanation. Thank you. Dominic, I'm going to return to you because I didn't catch. Did you share where you're from?
Oh, I'm in Boston.
Okay. And then
That's
Dominic, you have experience both as a day student and a resident, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So we've got that context. All right. Eric, can you say hello?
Hello, I'm Eric. I'm originally from Burlington, Vermont, well, outside of Burlington. And I came here as a sophomore. I'm currently a junior. I participate in soccer, basketball, and probably I'm doing track in the spring, not quite sure yet. I'm also part of student council. And I think anything else?
No, I think you covered it. Yeah. Eric's remote this year, but typically is a resident. Yeah. All right. Last but not least, we have Andy.
Hi, I'm Andy Leeshaw. I'm from Key Biscayne, Florida. I sail, do technical theater, and woodworking. I came as a sophomore, and I'm currently a senior.
Thanks for being here. Guys, I really appreciate it. I think this first question I'm actually going to turn over to some of the students because I'm suspicious you guys would fall under this category. A parent asked, would you kindly give us some insight into the daily academic life of a student with ADHD, specifically one who struggles with focus, organization, and follow-through? Is that any of our students on the call? Could you relate to that? So the question is, what sort of support is in place to support you with focus, organization, and follow-through? So whoever wants to speak to that question, we can have multiple responses, but I think it'd be nice to hear from the students first.
Sure. So we have tutors every day, meeting every single day, and they really help you break down what is your day going to be like. They help with your organization, they help with your homework, and they help with your active study skills, just to anything to help you succeed in your classroom and also outside of classroom as well. But then our teachers also really help break down how to do little things, little increments of helping with your classwork to homework. And if, say, you're struggling in a certain class or a certain area, they will love to break those down so that you understand everything a little bit better. And if you still don't understand it, they will help as well, just to try to figure out the best way. And we also have admissions. So we have a person looking over your entire grade in your year, making sure that you're not failing in class, or you're not failing in something, or you're having difficulty. And they usually reach out every quarter, or they could reach out to you whenever, just to make sure how you're going and how you're doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Dominic. Maggie, did you want to add something?
Sure. So I think that a huge part that's helped me with my ADHD from being at Landmark was actually being in the residential program. They have a very strict schedule. So basically how it works with the residential program, at least, is you go in at level 1 and throughout your years, you can work your way up to be to level 6, which you get the most freedom and you also have the most responsibility. But basically they have a schedule for you to wake up at a certain time, be out of your dorm at a certain time. And then at night you have a time for your homework, you have some free time, but then once it gets to, I think like around like 7:30, it's time to be in your dorm, sit at your desk and get your homework done, which I think was a huge thing for me because before I was really bad at time management and it's still something I'm working on. But, I think before I came to Landmark, it was a really bad thing. But being there, my house parents were even like making sure that I wasn't sitting on my bed or wasn't like talking to other friends in my like in the next door or something, that they were making sure that I was sitting at my desk, got my work done. And I just had a really I had all my work done for the next day. I think another big thing was homework, makeup. A lot of students will say, oh, I hate homework makeup. But honestly, for me, as someone who doesn't like punishment or detention or all that kind of stuff, I know that really helped me be like, okay, make sure to get my homework done so I don't get homework makeup and I get to go to swim practice or get to go see my friends after school.
Great answer. Thank you. If you want to add, go ahead.
Yeah. Another thing with the whole homework and all the schedule is you had the teachers that also taught the classes would stay after school, and you can get extra help if you need for math, sciences, and once a week it's usually your teacher. So I would go back in last year for math and get extra help at least 2-3 extra hours a week just to get caught up or be in front of the class.
Good point. Yeah. All right, families and students listening in, what other questions do you have for either the administrators on the call or our 4 brave students? Let's see. Anything else is coming in? I'm glad you're here, guys. How about speaking to the seniors? Ms. O'Neill spoke a lot about the guidance in transition. Do you want to talk about where you're headed, next steps, and kind of how your experience was with that process?
Sure, I can talk a little bit about that. So I honestly, college has always been something that really scared me, especially before coming to Landmark. I never really knew that I could go to college or do my ACTs or even write an essay to really do this stuff. So one thing that really helped me was the tutors. My tutor helped me hunker down on practice ACTs, practice SATs, making sure that I was comfortable with the test because that's kind of what the whole thing was about. And then she also helped me write my main college essay and my supplementals. So I was really prepared the whole time. I now have applied to 8 schools. I've gone into 4. I am thanks. I am still waiting to hear back from a couple of schools just to figure out where I'm gonna go. But it's a really a cool thing to get the acceptance letters, just because for me, I never really thought that I could do that. And then seeing them getting into these good schools and seeing my friends from here who also have the same experience as me being like, oh my God, I'm going to my dream school now, is also a really cool thing.
Hey, do you know what you want to study, Maggie?
I think I'm going to double major in psychology and communications.
Awesome. Great. Dominic, you want to talk about your future?
Sure. As Maggie said, as Margaret said, tutorials really help my educational system of learning what do I need for my college, what supplementations, how can I make myself better? And then also the teachers really help as well as learning your requirements and then also breaking down what things you need. For now, for colleges, I applied to 12. I got in so far to 11. And I'm thinking of applying for arts, especially in photography, and continue running as well.
Awesome, Dominic. Congratulations. You guys are so impressive. Andy, what are you thinking? Are you returning to Florida?
I wish. No, I applied to 2 colleges, Mass Maritime and Maine Maritime, and I committed to Massachusetts Maritime for a marine transportation major. Huh. And with the tutorial, Haywood and I mostly took all the reins for my college, and I was always on top of what I needed to get done. and he was there to support me, give me feedback on my essays, and now now going into academic school with an academy and a regiment, he and we've started studying and memorizing all of the knowledge I need going into the academy.
Great. Guys, I'm so excited for you. Bright futures. A question that usually comes up for, again, families, don't hesitate to let us know what you're curious about, but a question that we get a lot from the students is, you know, I'm sure some of you guys felt this way, like, you know, the fear of leaving your friends and your family and jumping in on this. What would you say to a student who says, I don't know? Eric, I know going from a big public school to Landmark, what are your thoughts?
So I went from public school. I was never in a private school in my life, which had quite a few people in it. It was Vermont, so big for Vermont standards. And then I come down here to Landmark, which is a little bit of a more smaller school. But I think at Landmark, you make friends very quickly, especially if you're a resident, because you're around people very a lot. So like you're around your friends all the time, which has its pros, but also has its cons, because sometimes you're like, hey, I might need a little bit more space. But generally speaking, people are accepting. If you're like, hey, you know, I'm going to lock my door, I'm going to need some time to myself, you know, it's fine. And the boarding program also does a good job pairing you up with a roommate that they think you're not going to want to like get rid of by the end of the year. They're careful about that, which is always nice. But when you come here, you see that it's a very accepting community. And we're not a very quickie community, so we're very like open. You know, people can come in even later years, not only as freshmen, and make friends very quickly, and then keep those friends over longer periods of time as well.
Nice. Eric, I think we need to acknowledge that Nick's with you. Speaking of a close community, another awesome Landmark student. Hi, Nick. Do you want to give a little context? So Eric no longer living in Vermont.
So I have made a friend last year who has now been willing to house me and let me become a day student. So I'm not remote anymore. And I'm now living with Nick, who I met last year. And I hope he's okay with me staying at his house. Haven't asked him yet, but yeah, that's just an example right there.
That's a great example. Good. Let's see. Not a lot of questions tonight. What do you guys think, students and administrators, if there's one thing that you think students and families on this call should know about Landmark, what would you want them to walk away with?
I would say to incoming students to not be afraid. I know that when my parents first talked to me about switching schools, not even a boarding school that was 300 miles away from home or anything like that, I was kicking and screaming a little bit. And I think a lot of people do. I know my old roommate was doing it also. We all grow together. But I think that this has been a really great experience. And I've met amazing kids that I never would have met if I never came here. Kids from all over the world. Like I had a really good friend last year who just graduated from Africa, which is amazing. And there's kids from Brazil and all over the United States, and it's so cool. And you also are getting a really good education that you can't get anywhere else, which not a lot of people can get. I know that even like my best friend's little brother, he has dyslexia, but his parents aren't as fortunate to send their kids to Landmark. So if you have the opportunity, do it, because you would be so lucky to get the education that you get here.
Thanks, Maggie.
Go ahead, Miss Barrett.
No, you first, Andy.
Okay. One thing I can say to incoming students is use all of the things provided, all the extra times, anything teacher gives you, treat it like gold. It's all valuable information that could help you in the near future.
I think I would just add, Katie, I think there's a belief that every student that comes to Landmark can succeed. And I really do mean that. We really do mean that. Maggie talked about, coming, kicking and screaming. We do kicking and screaming at Landmark School, and we see it all. And sometimes we have students that don't believe they can succeed. and we've seen that too. And I think if students are willing to ask questions, do the work, sort of come to the table, open themselves up to us, up to their peers, they're going to succeed within the model of our program. And I think that's really true. And it's one of the things that's exciting about working here. And I think is one of the things that's exciting about being a student here.
I'd like to add, one thing is you go as a student, but you almost go more as a person becoming at Landmark. Kids' confidence can go from non-existent to through the roof at Landmark. Like when I came, I was like, maybe I'm not going to talk to people. Like, I wasn't that shy. And now I feel like I'm way more confident than I came in. I'm willing to advocate to teachers saying, hey, can you please do something this way? Can we explain this? Before, I would not send an email to my teacher. Like, no way. I'm not sending an email to Mrs. Smith. That's not happening. But now I feel like my confidence has grown a lot, and my ability to advocate and my ability to express myself has all gone through the roof. And I think that's happened with a lot of kids as well.
There's a couple good questions that just came in about the nightly homework, the workload, particularly for a student who might have slower processing. Any students speak to that?
Sure. It really depends, but per class, for all of your classes, for 7 to 8 classes, they want to have you do not a lot of work, not busy work. So usually a night's worth is maybe an hour to 30 minutes, maybe pushing to 2 hours. And that really depends, what level classes are you taking, or is it going to be more writing, or is it going to be more problems? It really depends, but teachers don't want you to be buried in homework, which is really nice. So you are able to do other things within your night instead of just being buried in the books.
Can I add a little bit just in my academic hat? I think my answer to this question is what I was going to say about the most important part of Landmark for me is that I think our job is to see your children, or see you for who you are and what you need. And homework's a part of that. It might seem like sort of a small part, but I think it's important that we see what you're able to do independently and support you in doing that on a routine basis, and hold you accountable to standards that are reasonable, but that force you to kind of grow. So we tell teachers to think about 20 minutes a night for homework. And as you progress in your years, it might be longer, like Dominic's saying, it might be more like 2 hours a night, but the residential study hall is an hour and a half. And for most students, I think that's about enough time to get most of their work done on a nightly basis.
Teachers, even if you're having trouble doing the homework, they also encourage you to advocate for yourself. So if you need extra time on a project or something, it'll be easier, and I've done it many times, to shoot them an email saying if I can have a small extension to ease the workload. And most of them are more than willing, as long as you advocate with enough time.
Great. There was a question about how early students can arrive. Rob and Bill are usually the welcome committee up the drive in the morning, so they can speak to that.
Sure, I'm happy to. Under non-pandemic time, when we're fully residential and populated on campus, day students can arrive anytime 7:15 in the morning or after. They get here that early, they can jump into the caf and grab breakfast. Similarly, they eat lunch, and if they're here through dinner, they eat dinner, and if they're here after dinner, then we just assign them someplace to be. We don't close, and so we just, you're in the system, you're in the system. If they get here and they don't want to grab breakfast, they can jump into Laporto Lounge and hang out there. They don't need to stand outside anywhere. There's several places that they can go. The only restriction that we would ask them not to jump into the residences that early in the morning, because students are up getting themselves ready, getting ready to pass morning inspection, get room cleanup done in the morning to get out the door on time. So day students get here early. I would say 99% of them, when they do get here, they jump in and grab breakfast in the morning.
Great. Any other questions, families, or potentially the students who are listening in? Any questions?
I have a question for the students. It's okay, Katie. So Maggie, you mentioned coming kind of kicking and streaming, and if memory serves correct, I think that was a bit of an understatement. but you made the transition in. Can you let parents know how long it took you to make the transition and what was the hardest part of the transition?
Sure. So I can clearly remember the day that my mother told me that I was going to switch schools. We were in Wyoming like my family went on a vacation. And then my mom, like literally we were all about to go on the plane for like 6 hours to come back from Wyoming. And my mom was like, "You're switching schools." I was like, "No, I'm not." Like I was so angry and upset. I remember very clearly that when we got home, I was still very upset with her, would not talk to her for like 3 days because I was like, "No, I'm going to go spend time with my friends. I can't leave my friends, blah, blah, blah." I remember I sat down with her on the kitchen counter and we read the Landmark intro thing and basically just said, "This is what our objective is for our students." And I started crying because I was like, oh my God, there are people that understand what I'm going through. There are other kids like me. And that was like kind of like an oh my God moment that people you talk about and you're like an aha moment. But Mr. G said, I still, even when I got to school, even thinking about that, I was still kicking and screaming. I think that one main thing that changed was when we went to orientation. And I think I talked to a lot of other people in my residential program who say this, you make such close friends on that trip because you're all stuck on a little like island for 2 nights. You have no phones, no anything. You're supposed to do teamwork activities and you really make these great connections. I met my 2 best friends who both graduated last year, but I still keep in touch with them even though they're in college now. I met my roommate from last year who I consider like my sister. She's also in college right now, but I'm still keeping in touch with her. I think that the hardest part was sometimes homesickness. That's like the main thing. And I know a lot of people talk about this, but my house parents were amazing. They were really like there for me. They kept me in touch with the counselor at school who I still communicate with to like make sure my anxiety levels and my homesickness levels were all really good. And I know that like, I think it took a year for me to fully realize the potential that I got from Landmark. And I know that takes kids a lot longer, but you really just have to stick it out and you really get the results.
Maggie, I think you made a couple of people tear up. That's very real. Thank you guys just so much for your like honesty and being so candid and kind of vulnerable, but it makes a big difference for families who are considering a major shift in their entire lives. So thank you for letting people in that way. It's really special. Trying to regroup. Anything else before we let people get on with their Wednesday evening? Administrators, do you feel like there's anything else?
I think Libby answered this in the chat, but I just wanted to highlight that we've been in person since August. So we have about 40 students who've chosen for a variety of reasons to be fully remote this year. And we have a big group of kids, between 70 and 80, depending, that have been hybrid, meaning they participate remotely some days and on campus others. But I think we're all, students and faculty, incredibly proud of the fact that campus has been open and running since the end of August. I have a daughter in 2nd grade who's been on campus probably 20 days total to her elementary school. So I know how much has been lost academically and socially. And our community's really kind of risen and exceeded all of our expectations around safety protocols and distancing and masking and just kind of rolling with it and being flexible. So I feel really proud of our community. And I know that our kids have gotten a lot out of this year in terms of resiliency and strength, and also academically. So depending on what your year has been like, if it's been kind of an off year or spotty in-person services or not quite what you expected, I think we've learned a ton this year in terms of how to set up a safe and supportive school coming into next year, and would really welcome the chance to work with people who are both recovering from a really wonky year because of COVID, and then also looking to Landmark for the language-based supports that we always provide. So I think it's significant that we've made it this far and have done as well as we have. And hopefully I'm not jinxing anything, but I just wanted to highlight that part of the program.
For me, it's pretty simple. When I came here, I promised my wife, we live on campus. I'm one of the only administrators that lives on the grounds. I've lived on the grounds and raised my family here. I've been, again, like I said, I've been here for 25 years. And I remember telling my wife when we moved here, I said, honey, don't worry. Like, this is going to be like a 3, maybe 4-year stint total. And then we're going to push on to something bigger and better somewhere else. And in July, I started my 25th year. And she throws it at me on a fairly regular basis. But for me, it speaks to both the work that we do and the commitment that this community of professionals has to really supporting and helping these young people truly do find their voice, find their confidence, and find a pathway back to feeling competent and capable and ready to move on from high school with a solid foundation of opportunity, learning, and skill to platform into the next place. It is very gratifying to work in this type of environment with the people. And I feel very blessed to work with this group of young people. I truly enjoy kind of hanging out with them and working with them. My wife would say that's probably because I haven't grown through adolescent development myself. But then again, she goes on to say most men haven't. So I guess that's a conversation for a different time. But it is really an amazing place to be privileged to work in, and we feel very honored to have the opportunity to work with other people's children. There is no greater gift than that. So we really appreciate you considering letting your child come spend some time with us.
Katie, the only thing I would add is I would just encourage anyone, if you do have questions, if you walk away from this and you think of other things, obviously you have Katie and Melody as resources, but reach out to any one of us. I think Ariel and Rob just said it very well, but I think we're very proud of what we're able to do. We're very grateful to be part of this. I think we're excited to talk about, like Ariel said, the things we've accomplished this year. I think we're even more excited to talk about what next year potentially is going to look like. You know, there's still some uncertainty, but at the same time, I think we're riding, like Ariel alluded to, a pretty good wave of confidence right now. And what we can do as a community, meaning administrators, meaning teachers, and especially students in terms of the flexibility and resiliency that people have shown. So if you do have questions walking away from this, or you just want to have, you know, a more in-depth conversation with any of us, you know, please reach out. We're more than happy to talk about this. And thank you again for being here.
Great. I'll dismiss our panelists, guys. We so appreciate you taking the time. And Melody and I can wrap up with what to expect from the admissions process. But thank you again, students. You always floor me. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Maggie, it's good to see you.
Thank you for
Thanks.
the time tonight.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Melody, do you want to mention a little bit about next steps for families? And
Yeah, so I mentioned a little bit during the presentation just in terms of our admission process that we work on a rolling basis. We don't have an application deadline. So, you know, we encourage, obviously this is a busy time of year for us, and the sooner you can start getting us materials, the better. It is one application, whether you're thinking about summer program or school year, or the possibility of both. That's, you know, right on the front page for you to indicate, you know, what you want to apply for. And we keep in touch with you every step of the way through the process. So as you start to get us application materials, we will be emailing with you, letting you know, what we've received, what might still be outstanding that we're waiting on. And once we do have a completed application, we will let you know that. And we go through a very thorough review process. We follow up with lots of folks and meet as a committee. We, hopefully everybody got the clear message from listening to all of that, we really want to set students up to have a very positive, successful experience at Landmark. And so we are very thorough with our process, because again, we want to do our best to ensure that will happen when a student is accepted to Landmark and enters our school, that they really meet with success. So that again, that's our process, and there's a bit more to it than that, but we don't need to get into all the specific details. But please reach out at any time to ask questions. Again, it was great that the administrators offered to be available as well, but please know that in the admission office, you can email us, call us, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have every step of the way.
Julie, did you have a question that you wanted to ask in front of the group, or were you hoping to stay on? Oh, you're muted, Julie. Let's see if we can unmute you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, I just was really moved by the student testimonials. They were very, I think it's Margaret McTigue and Andrew and Dominic. They were very articulate and really it's quite a testimonial to the success of your program, and that all that they've been through and all that they've accomplished. It's remarkable, really.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate that. The nice thing to note too is we have about 60 students who serve as tour guides. So this is not scripted. It's not the same 4 kids every time. These were just 4 students who volunteered for this particular session. So if you go back to watch some of our filmed info visits from the past, I think that same sort of the students impressed regardless of who the 4 are. But I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Pass that along to them.
And I love listening to Eric. He didn't get highlighted, but Eric also speaks fluent German and spends a ton of time when he's not in school in Germany. So when he first comes back to us, his accent is really thick and at times really difficult to understand him. When he first came back, I'm like, Eric, you got to say that again. I can't understand you. And the longer he stays here, he loses the German accent and his American or his English skills pop back in. So it's really fun to spend time with him. He's a great human.
Well, great. Thank you everyone for taking the time again. Please follow up with questions and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.